Welcome to the broadcast. Today we are going to be discussing Angela Kelly and her run-in with the Duchess of Sussex. We're going to be discussing Harry and his gains at Invictus. We are also going to be discussing real royalty and what they've been doing over the past few days. The Waleses, Princess Anne, very nice. And we are also going to have a tip jar corner today. So the timestamp for Tip Jar Corner will be in the description box, and I've got lots of trinkets to show you. I've got lots of wardrobe items to share with you, bric-a-brac, lovely finds, and also I'm going to give you just a tiny weeny, just a few seconds glimpse at my recent holiday stay in Wiltshire, which was very lovely. So that's all coming up, but I wanted to start with Princess Beatrice because I fell in love with the dress that she was captured wearing as she left the Bluebird Cafe after meeting with friends. She was wearing this pink dress by Tiara Colson, floral print, cotton voile, isn't it gorgeous? And she's toting that monogrammed handbag, that Walton basket bag with BMM for Beatrice Mapoli emblazoned on it. But then, of course, you get down to the shoes, because this is a York girl we're talking about, isn't it? and not to my taste, my dear. I understand that she wants to dress for comfort. She's running around town. But there are cooler ways to do it, I've got to say. There are cooler ways to do it. And I'm not suggesting that she comes out with a pair of Doc Martens, precisely. But actually you can find, and I'm thinking specifically of a friend of mine who has wonderful taste and mixes up the old and the new and the vintage. You can find wonderful leather boots of great quality that have a sort of worn-in patina to them and look as if they would suit her rather retro-style Victorian Edwardian black leather lace-up ankle boots that are still comfortable and you can trot around town in, because with what she's wearing this weekend, my dear, you know, it's like Cinderella after she's fled the ball and she's replaced her glass slippers with orthopedic footwear, my dear. No, but I do adore that frock. Oh, it is absolutely gorgeous. Angela Kelly has been hitting the headlines, and this was always a bit of a fear of mine because she kept such a dignified silence all that time for decades that she was working for the late Queen. She was given permission to publish a book. She tells us apparently that she is thinking about working on another book next year upcoming. But she is making a bit of a mistake by engaging in social media. She rarely posts on Instagram, and I mean months and months and months apart. But this week she was goaded by trolls and she responded. Now, I didn't actually see it with my own eyes, but they've been repeated all over the press, so I'm presuming that it is verified and correct that she did come out with these replies. But Angela, dear, if you're watching, I want you to know, because you are an experienced woman, and we are also very grateful to you for dressing the late Queen exquisitely over the last few decades of her life. Really, really, my hat goes off to you. But you are not experienced with social media. And for the uninitiated, it can be a terrifying place. And it is vicious. It is vicious. And you will always be, no matter what you do, you will always be misinterpreted, misrepresented, misquoted, misunderstood, moreover. And this is going to be a question of dignity going forward, because it is human to want to react, and as has been explained in other quarters, not just by Harry, you yourself might have rather a reactionary element to your nature, which can be both positive and negative. This is just a gentle word of warning. Let your work be your voice. Let the books you write be your voice. Dignified, not indulgent, not responding to criticism in any sort of base way. You are above it, Angela Kelly. You were in some ways the Queen's bestie for the last years of her life. Well, I shouldn't over-egg the pudding. She had her very close companions, you know, from the realms of aristocracy, but in her inner circle, her bubble, if you will. You know, you were right there, my dear. You don't need to explain yourself to anybody. You were in that vaulted, exalted position. And that will always be yours. That will always be yours. If I'm confusing anybody here, forgive me. Angela Kelly responded to trolls that were baiting her. And sometimes these trolls not often, I've got to say, sometimes they're members of the press. And they come from all sides, by the way, not just Sussex fans, but also royal fans. Always saddos. But one particular troll seems to have got on Angela's nerves and she bit back. This troll called her a bed potato or something along those lines. It was saying, I hope you get your karma, Angela, for starting a hate campaign against Meghan, leaking things. You're hated within the royal family. They kicked you out. The king kicked you out. And she took the bait. Angela took the bait. And she said, Meghan and I got on very well. Actually, she said, I don't hate Meghan. You have got this all wrong. So please stop this bullying. Stop discrediting me. Meghan and I got on very well. Get your facts right and leave me alone. And she has every right to say this. Of course she does. As long as she's not under some sort of palace agreement, some NDA. You know, I understand she is only human and has the right to say it. I am just encouraging her to take the upper hand and to take her late good friend's advice, who she misses so very terribly. We all know what that mantra is, and Angela Kelly should know it better than anyone else. Never complain. Never explain. Hear me, because it will be a slippery slope, and it doesn't matter how you rebuff and how you explain, it will be taken. And a lot of these people that make the comments also are challenged. It takes all of us on social media a little moment for the penny to drop, that some of these people who you think, how can they live like this? How can they do these kind of things? Are challenged in some ways. Well, as I've said before, I have every sympathy and compassion for challenged people. And I'm using the word challenge to cover a broad spectrum of all kinds of conditions, medications. There are all sorts of propositions this involves. My sympathy stops when they start making life difficult for me and you, for other people on the other side of the lollipop. It's not fair, it's not right. And it isn't right that they invade your social media, my dear, but I am just urging you to stay royal and to channel the royal spirit. You don't need to answer back to them, because whichever platform, whatever the size, one often needs to remind oneself that those who get it. And those who don't worry about them, my dear. Don't bother about them. Don't give them the time of day. But putting those fears aside, it's decent of Angela Kelly to lay it down and say, no, she doesn't hate Meghan, as you often hear me say 1,000,000 times over. I don't hate her either. Or Harry. I hate what they did. She says Meghan and I got on very well. She doesn't say that she and Harry got on very well, so she's staying quiet there. And let us not forget how Harry put Angela's name in his mouth. She kept a dignified silence in the wake of that. That must have been difficult. But for those of you who didn't read Harry's tone, there was all this furore over Tiara Gate, and apparently Angela was obstructing the various tiara that Meghan wanted to wear in time for the wedding, yada, yada, yada. She was being obstructive, Harry says, obviously. But for what reason? We couldn't even hazard a guess. I considered going to Granny, but that would probably mean sparking an all-out confrontation, and I wasn't quite sure with whom Granny would side. I don't know if Granny's going to take wicked Angie's side. Agent High Heels.
Doesn't she know that I'm Granny's favourite? I'm Granny's favourite. And she's got to side with Angie. Angie's got to make her. I'm going to check who has been hanging around with my Granny. I just needed to pop in to see her to check she's okay because I'm her favourite. She doesn't really like Willie, but she loves Harold, and I've got to protect her, but Angie is there pouring poison in her ear. Oh, Granny, oh, Granny.
How pathetic.
To my mind, Angela was a troublemaker, and I didn't need her as an enemy. Above all, she was still in possession of that tiara. She held all the cards.
Oh, the drama from the cartridge of J.R. Moringer's fountain pen. Or should I say typing fingers? Oh, the drama, ooh la la, from the art of memoir. And he goes on to say that eventually Angela appeared out of thin air with the tiara, making Harry sign a release form. Yes, they're extremely valuable, priceless gems from the royal collection, or whatever it is, my dear. You know, this is procedure, and she is a member of staff. Can you imagine who would have come down on a ton of bricks if someone had made off with that tiara, or it had gone conveniently missing? Then they would have asked, why did nobody sign the form? She doesn't have your privilege, Harry. She was staff. She was help. And she was doing her duty by getting you to sign a release form, my dear. So I don't know why you put that little dig in there, as if it is a sign of her bad form and bad character. She was doing what she's supposed to do with the royal gems. I thanked her, he says, though I added that it would have made our lives so much easier to have had it sooner. So you're basically saying you had a go at her. You can just see his flustered, privileged face, can't you? Flaring red and making his dig. He says that Angela's eyes were fire when he had a go at her, and an argument ensued. I wonder why.
Angela, you really want to do this now? Really? Now? She fixed me with a look that made me shiver. Oh! I could read in her face a clear warning. This isn't over. Oh!
So, as well as painting poor Angie Kelly for being the most terrifying harridan to come out of the Liverpool docks since Cilla Black. The most terrifying harridan. He also then laid at her doorstep the claim that she had a reputation for giving stories to the press. Now, whether or not this be true or false, this is a claim. And I'm sorry, but unless you have absolute watertight proof of such a thing, how dare you, Harry, when you are constantly telling us how you're accused of this and you're accused of that and people are being unfair and all kinds of injustices, you're happy to lay this down. The suggestion that she has a reputation for giving stories to press without a whisper of actual proof. Talk about feeding them to the wolves. It wasn't your wife, it was Angela Kelly.
Among the many services she performed for Granny, she was said to be skilled at planting stories.
Now, listen, if this is true, I'm all ears, my dear. I'm open to hearing about it. But we need more than rumour if you're going to publish it in a tome that is proliferated around the world to millions, my dear. And in fact, I would be calling a meeting with my libel lawyer if I were Angela Kelly. That is quite an accusation to throw down with apparently, seemingly, no substantial evidence. And the next quiz to ask is exactly what would your late granny think about this, had she been alive? Remember, he thought she was going to be alive when this book was published, and she would have had to live and breathe, still working with Angela Kelly, and look her in the eye every morning, knowing that her traitor grandson has published this kind of thing. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how Queen Elizabeth would have felt if she was still alive? And you're going to put the word respect in your mouth, Harry, as he's been doing this weekend. You know, this comes on the week that he paid his so-called respect at Windsor on Accession Day. And he's had the gall to lecture his adoring audience at Invictus Games in Dusseldorf at the opening ceremony. And it seems as if he's been receiving some sort of training for his performance on stage and roam around asking the audience various questions. This is a home for respect.
What does it mean to you? What does it look like? What does it feel like?
Well, what it doesn't look or feel like, my dear, is a 500-page volume with random penguins on the back and a big ginger picture of you on the front, full of pages of betrayal. That is what respect does not look, feel, or read like, my dear. That is certainly not a home for respect. So stop preaching. There were three new countries joining Invictus Games for this one: Colombia, Israel, and Nigeria. And he didn't hesitate to tell us about Meghan, he said,
I'm not saying we play favourites in our home, but since my wife discovered that she is of Nigerian descent, it's likely to get a little bit more competitive this year.
Oh dear, yes, as if we haven't all had it hammered into us, because we all know that Meghan rushed out to find out her black credentials, and she's told us all that she is 43% Nigerian, not 44, not 42, 43%, just in case you were curious. Although when he mentioned this to the audience, and they'd been very receptive and very kind to him, as soon as he put that name in his mouth and told that little anecdote about Nigeria, tumbleweed. Tumbleweed it was, which I thought was quite telling. No laughter, no jollity. Well, what about the other 57%, Meghan? Are you going to support all of those other teams from your ancestry as well? You've got Irish in you, from Mary Smith, your great-great-great-granny, who then married a Londoner, didn't she? That soldier, Thomas Bird. So you've got Irish, you've got English, some say you've got Dutch, some say you've got Maltese. I'm sure all these nations will be thrilled to know that they have your unwavering support, my dear, but it seems that Nigeria is going to be your darling. There was a cheeky little game, a penalty shootout, where he went up against some other sportsman, penalty shootouts, and he performed very badly, and it's all in good fun, so that's fine, although he is famously a bad loser, and his brother has been talking about the importance of knowing and learning how to lose well as to win well, without arrogance. Also, to lose well, Harry really needs a few lessons from this, and he should have watched The Good, the Bad and the Rugby, the podcast featuring Mike Tyndall, and they threw up surprise appearances from the Prince and Princess of Wales and the Princess Royal. And I think it was an hour's show. I skipped through and watched the highlights. It's not my cup of tea, dear. I don't care how charming the event is. The surroundings were lush at Windsor. It looked absolutely beautiful, but no. Sports is not my kind of subject, but I did skip through some of the highlights. I'm not devoting an hour to it, though, my dears, maybe 5 minutes. But it's garnered 1 million views so far. More than that, actually, because I know from doing my own broadcast that the ticker takes a while to catch up. It looks like you've got a certain amount of views, but behind the scenes we can see that we've achieved more views, and the ticker is catching up. So it's coming up to 1 million views online now. So that probably means, proportionately, that it's more likely 1.5 million coming up to, or maybe 1,300, something like that, which is a really good amount of views for that podcast, and on YouTube now generally, because it's incredibly competitive, more ferociously competitive every day, and as well as all us coming to you from the comfort of our own throne at home, you know, all the professional channels have muscled in on it, all the major news stations, all the major everyone is sort of transitioning over, so there's a great sort of prize for the eyes going on. It's not easy to get these kind of views, but I'm afraid, Harry, my dear, that more eyes have been on your brother this weekend than you at Invictus, but it was well received. I think it's very nice that it's bringing them to the attention of people that wouldn't otherwise watch them or like them, because they all come across as very likeable. Princess Anne, of course, gets a lot of compliments because she is fabulous. She's fabulous, and I'm going to sound immodest now saying that after what I've just said, but she does remind me a little bit of me. Out of all of them that were sitting around, her manner and style does actually remind me quite a bit of what I'm actually like when I'm talking and joking with friends. I've got similar sort of humour, a sort of warm frostiness, if you know what I mean. But I suppose that's for others to judge. But also Catherine put me in mind of a quality to my nature, because I cannot bear being part of a small group of people in a circle, having a sort of one focused conversation, a conversation that's focused on one thing. This is what I get like when I start thinking about it. I can't find my words and I'm not articulate. You put me down with one person, I'm fabulous. You put me in front of a large crowd, I'm fabulous. But if I'm talking to one friend and we're having a little cosy catch-up or something in a hotel foyer or something, and then we're suddenly joined out of the blue by 4 or 5 other people, acquaintances, whatever, and they come and sit round and we're all expected to share the same conversation. I hate it. I shudder. I absolutely shudder. And I'm one of those people around dinner tables as well, dining. I'm afraid I cannot focus on the conversation with various different interchanges going on. I'm the awkward one, or people wouldn't say it of me, but I feel it. And I sense this in Catherine too. Not quite sure when to come in. And when you come in, you feel like people just start talking over you. And that's me, my dear. It's a sort of clumsy feeling that some of you will know the feeling of. Some of you won't have any idea. Probably goes more to us that have slightly introvert bent at some point. You know, I have introvert and extrovert sides to my nature, but generally speaking, I'm a little bit more introvert. But what I'm trying to say, I suppose, is that I felt the others looked a little more relaxed than Catherine did, although she was very well engaged. And although I don't think appearing in these podcasts does any harm at all and could actually be beneficial, I would remind them that we must not let daylight in on magic. We must not let any more daylight in on magic. I mean, let's face it, the drapes have been well and truly forced open in recent years and decades. It's not as it once was, but the magic is still there. We know it and we feel it, don't we, my dear? And I think that Catherine in particular is a wonderful silent movie star. And that isn't to say that she hasn't got powerful things to say and isn't a good speaker. She is. She's competent. She's very competent. But Catherine has a magical quality that even our future king does not, as fine as he is. Catherine has it. She has that silent movie star quality that Kate Moss had in the old days before anybody really heard her speak. She can get it all over on camera without any need for lots and lots of interviews and this kind of thing. You know, obviously the late Queen had the same power, but I would like to encourage that in our future Queen going forward. She also didn't need to do any talking when she was cheered by a crowd of 60,000 at the Rugby World Cup in Marseille. She wore white McQueen, she wore the Empress diamond carriage earrings and the matching Empress mini white gold and diamond pendant necklace, and she met with players in their dressing room. Lucky them, and lucky Catherine. Okay, that's quite enough of our royal romper for today. Let's sojourn to somewhere else, shall we, my dears? If you wish to hang out with me for a few more moments, let's go to Tip Jar Corner. Welcome to Tip Jar Corner, my dears. I've just jazzed up the look with some purple glitter. I bought a tiny little pot of purple glitter this morning, and I just thought I'd whack some on very crudely as an experiment. It doesn't really suit me, but I just fancied having a bit of fun. That is what the spirit of Tip Jar Corner is for. The dressing up box approach. To show off my vintage and charity shop hauls. Got some nice things to show you today. And actually, I've been having great fun at the charity shops the last few weeks. They've been yielding such fruit. They seem to go through various phases. I used to think it was seasonal, but not so much. It just seems random. But every week for the last few weeks, I've come away with bags full of stuff to air on the broadcast and to entertain myself. Various finds, and it's such good fun. But let's start with this necklace of coloured stones, which was £4.50 from Cancer Research. Most of the charity shop finds I show you today are Cancer Research or what's the other one, British Heart Foundation. I like the colour palette on this design. Greens, pinks, blues. What else do I see there? Purples, sort of pear-shaped teardrops, ending with that final stone and a sort of amethyst effect. Quite pretty. This, it is silver, isn't it? Or is it gold? I think it's silver, a sort of leaf effect necklace that's nice. And I nearly paired it with something that I wore on the broadcast the other day, which I'll show you later, but something better came along. But I like jewellery that sort of harkens back to nature, and this puts me in mind of, I don't know, the fir tree, the pine, I'm not quite sure, but those prickly sort of leaves. But sometimes it's nice to wear something without stones that is a little bit more muted, although of course stones and gems are always going to be my favourite, and that's why I picked up this one. I really love the colours of this one and how shimmering it is. This was £10, this one was. They're putting their prices up in all these charity shops, but I love it. 5 different strands. I love the shape of it. This is going to look really nice if I find something suitable to pair it with. Green, blue, very pale blue, champagne and clear. A mix of metallic beads and watery stones that will undulate about the throat with its unusual colourways and chic glamour. This was a very simple find. I can't remember how much it was, just a couple of quid I think. And I didn't know if it would work because it's so thin, a sort of blue lace necklace. I didn't know if it would work with anything, but actually it went really well with yesterday's look, I thought, and it did glimmer and shine, even though it's rather on the thin side. I paired it with a shirt that I found. An old shirt that I called the electric deck chair shirt. Very bright, wasn't it, my dear? A little bit too bright, as some of you said, but rather fun. It has no label, this shirt. Intense stripes of rich blue and pink and white and black. And I employed my new headband technique of layering headbands, which some of you have picked up on. Yes, I actually rather enjoy layering, as I've done today. This is a dual layering. I've also done a triple layering, which you'll see later. But I added a blue headband with flowers and fabric to one side, which is a new one with little buds like icing sugar in pale pink and pale blue, and petals with a design pattern in green and yellows. It slotted in very well behind my bright pink headband, and it really matched the look. Everything seemed to come together. This is a very simple top that I found for £4 at the British Heart Foundation. It went with the Balmoral theme, but I'd prepared this part of the wardrobe for the autumn season, but it was still blazing hot outside, so I decided to brighten up the look, and I chose a bright blue. Well, I used that brooch that reminds me of a thistle, a large thistle, light blue there, and then matching headwear. This luscious, dazzling hairband in bright turquoise. It's a real Bobby Dazzler with hundreds of lovely blue lozenges, edged with stripes of diamante and lined in velvet. By the way, I will be showing you some stuff you've yet to see in a few moments, but I'm just going through the various recent looks. This was a gorgeous look and quite unexpected because I picked this up somewhere and didn't really think much of it. There's no label in it or no name. But it looked lovely on the broadcast. I thought it looked fresh and chic, and the colour flattered my complexion. A peachy pink with those Regency stripes. And again, I layered hairbands in pale peach and champagne. Now, this was a really interesting one that came together so well, one of my recent favourites, involving this top by Clothes Contact, and I picked it up, and the thing is, on camera it reads differently, slightly differently to how it does in reality. It's actually got gold sequins and it looks a bit more golden. And so originally I thought it had a real sort of 80s vibe about it. This black vest inside, by the way, is sewn in, it's part of the construction, but it looks like a cardigan over a top. But I had in mind that I was going to go for a sort of 80s vibe, and I was going to wear it with this, and I was going to try and find maybe some large hoops for the ears, but I couldn't really find anything that matched very well for the head. In gold, I have got a few in gold, but nothing that I thought went well with this, and I thought, well, I'm going to have to risk just pairing it with silver and have silver and gold together, which I rather like actually, and it can be done. But then when I put on the headband was too large and too fancy for that necklace. So I changed the necklace to this one with lovely big jetty stones, sort of black. And this, I didn't want it to come over as a mourning outfit, but this was on Accession Day and the anniversary of the late Queen's death. So I thought it was fitting to have some black in the outfit. And then it began turning into something else. This, by the way, is the same, it's a version of my jam tart necklace, which I love very much. because it glows like hot jam around the throat, doesn't it? Sorry, I'm all fingers and thumbs. But I've got that one, and I've got it in black now. I've also got it in, I acquired one in another shade, which will be coming up, because I just love the design. It looks wonderful, and I think this will be my black jam affair. But yeah, it went well with this, but the whole look became quite a lot grander, obviously, because the jewels got bigger, the headband got bigger, and then I thought, well, what am I going to do for the ears? Because if you're going to go for it, you've got to go for it, haven't you, my dear? And I put on some plasticky black dangly earrings either side, but it didn't look quite enough. So I layered the earrings. We have layered hairbands and layered earrings now as well. I attached little crystal droplet earrings so that some light was glimmering off of them as well. Some light within the blackness. So we had all kinds of things going on with this look, my dear. But I thought it was a really happy accident. And moreover, it came together because this top that I thought would clash really with the look, it read as monochrome. It read as if it fitted in very well with the headband and all of the jewellery. So I couldn't have been happier with it. It came off like a sort of metallic animal print, which is what it is. But it was wonderful the way that it glowed, and very appropriate, I think, for that appearance. The chartreuse look was a lot of fun to put together, because I'd shown you the pendant in chartreuse just the week before, I think, that I found. I thought, I don't know what I'm going to find to try and make this thing look good. Well, as it happened, I found a tunic that very week that matched it precisely, and the neckline went precisely. What I really liked about it was the fact that it was encrusted with a few embellishments along the collar, and I loved the shape of the collar along the neck that was suspended by rather unusual straps along the back, and it went so well with that pendant, didn't it? And I triple layered the headbands. Yes, I had 3 of them, and they stay on very well. I adorned my head with a halo of jewels on a bright yellow headband and a green one behind it. Green fabric with lighter green flowers and yellow centres. Some little knickknacks that I picked up from the bric-a-brac section. This was £2. £2, and I thought it would be nice to, well, I don't know if they're supposed to be spring flowers, but we're going to make them autumnal flowers anyway for the autumn season coming up. They might be rather nice over in the background there, but we need to get some different colours going on, don't we? Some greens, some golds, some crimsons, the colours of autumn and harvest leaves coming up. So that'll be nice and a lot easier to take care of than the real thing. I've become a real advocate of artificial flowers. They're fabulous. No green fly. And I found this rather nice antique dish. Isn't it gorgeous? It's a real rarity. It's a real treasure. And I'm going to go on the Antiques Roadshow with it. Oh dear, maybe not, because it's from Zara Home. Zara Home, so not very authentic, but it doesn't stop me enjoying it and loving it. It was just £1.50, and I think I will find some use for it, perhaps in a bathroom to hold some soap, or on a side to hold loose change and keys. It's just a really nice green and cream dish. As you know, I had my ears pierced a few weeks ago, and they'll be healing for a few weeks, probably months, to be honest. I don't want to risk anything, so I'm going to take my time for them to heal. They're healing very well. And I will still continue to clip on some earrings here and there, and I will continue to wear clip-ons, a selection of clip-ons and the real thing in the future. But I was able to pick up my first, actually that's a lie, I have already purchased some earrings for my own personal wear, but for the broadcast and dressing up, this is my first, almost by accident. I didn't realise it was part of a sort of demi-parure, if that's what you want to call it, but I grabbed this from the side. It was going for £8. Actually, she told me it was £5. I think she gave me a £3 reduction, because I'm always in there and always buying stuff, and I also donate a lot to this particular shop that I was at. But I saw this on the side, picked it up. It's really gorgeous, lovely necklace there. I love the green. I love the style. I love the way that there's a little bit of razzmatazz with the diamante, and it's on a lovely gold chain. And yes, these matching earrings will be lovely to wear. I think it'll be spectacular for the spring season. But now a sneak peek at some items that you've yet to see on a broadcast, but they will all pop up in future. This one was £6.50, this orange top by Chic Soul. Chic Soul, you know, I've been taking a voyage to the east, haven't I, in inspiration for lots of the costumes, the wardrobe for the broadcasts this spring and summer, and I'm going to continue to do so. And I keep finding great things inspired by the east, including this gorgeous sort of silky orange. It's like a dusky warm sunset, golden oranges, some magentas in there, lovely gorgeous metallic-y golden floral designs, just very delicately weaving in and out with a touch of silver here and there. Gorgeous, gorgeous colours that feel wonderful to wear. And this is one of my favourites of recent finds, which again features orange. It is by Joseph Ribkoff. I think it gives off quite an 80s vibe. I call it Graffiti Juice. Graffiti Juice. And it's so fabulous. It has a sort of wet look vinyl sheen over it. Very unusual. The colours are unusual. The design is kind of abstract, but it reminds me very much of, I don't know, late 70s, early 80s New York, Brooklyn. This is the imagery it conjures up in my mind. Debbie Harry, Stephen Sprouse, the graffiti artists of that era, you know, the Jean-Michels and the Keiths and all of that sort of set. I don't know why it puts me in mind of that, but it does. Love it. And another exciting one inspired by the East that I picked up this morning. Had a successful trip just this morning to the charity shops, but this one was £15, a little more than usual. In the collar, although it's got Chinese writing in, or Mandarin or whatever it is, it says Liu Yan Ji Ying, I think. Anyway, it's a very large affair, and I really like wearing whites and creams. I think they look great on the broadcast, but it is so good that it will be broken up with a little bit of colourful design on it, such as this bird, presumably some kind of eagle, is it? Some bird of prey. There's a fan on there as well, I can see. Oh, a few fans. Some golden buttons. There's little bits of design all over it, at the back of it and at the base of it. And it looks really nicely made. It's not cheap old fabric, or at least it doesn't feel that way. It feels rather lush and thick, and also the inner lining, you get little glimpses of blue there with some separate embroidery inside in bright blues and reds and golds and browns. This cross has popped up in the background of a couple of broadcasts now. I'm not especially religious, by the way, as you know, but I do find comfort in some of the totems of Christianity, and I absolutely love this. I picked it up. I told you I was going away for a few days to Wiltshire, to various locations in Wiltshire. I did, and we had just the best time. Such a lovely tonic to get away. And during that time I went to both Bath Abbey and Laycock Abbey, and I can't remember where I picked this up. I've got a feeling it was Bath Abbey, but I might be mistaken. It was one of those, and it's got a sort of lush red velvety appearance to it with lots of gold decorations and adornments. It's really, really lovely. I've been to Bath and the Abbey in Bath on many occasions. I'm very familiar with Bath and I love it, although I hadn't been there for some time. It was lovely to go there and wander around the Abbey and the streets of Bath. I stayed just outside of Bath at a tiny little place called Norton St Philip, and there's nothing to do there, so you have to sort of remain hotel based, as we did on that particular day. And that accommodation was just gorgeous. It was opposite a tiny little pub called Fleur de Lis, which we didn't go in. It's attached to the hotel. I did look through the window. I was disappointed because they had a sort of stark screen on there playing Sky Sports or something. There was some match going on, which was a bit of a disappointment. You get that everywhere, but it looked lovely from the outside. But opposite there was the George Inn, which is where we stayed, and it was absolutely exquisite. I thoroughly recommend it, as long as you're happy with they're not, you have to take transport to get to where you're going, or take a car ride. There's nothing really around there. But Bath is very close by. It's a 14th century Grade 1 listed Tudor inn dating back to 1397, and it quivers with history. But we were only there really for an evening to eat there because the food was fabulous there and to get a good night's sleep. The next day we were in Laycock, which is the village that Camilla knows very well, our queen. She has her home, Raymill, more or less in Laycock, so she's very familiar with it, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And I know some of you have been there because you've told me in the comments. It's perfect for half a day, and we were so blessed with the weather. This was 3 days, and during the 3 days we had rain and shine. And as you know, I prefer rain, but I was looking forward to some sunshine during this break because we were going to some beautiful places. But we were heavenly blessed because every time that we needed some clemency in the weather, the sun came out hot, 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 hot and beautiful, including when we were in Laycock and we were wandering around and we went to Laycock Abbey. It was perfect then. And then at other times when we were inside or when we didn't need the weather to shine, it was gorgeously grey and drizzly. So I got the best of both worlds. I got exactly what I liked. For once it was as if the sun and the rain gods were smiling on me. Got a mixture of weathers, but Laycock, it was a real scorcher, and we went around the abbey on that day. Beautiful, surrounded by beautiful gardens. It began as a nunnery in the 1200s, and then it went on to become a Tudor family home. And the first photographic negative was captured in the abbey, and it's quite a thing because you can stand at the exact spot in front of a window where this negative was captured by William Henry Fox Talbot. It really is something to stand there and think about that moment in history from the way that we see the world now through lenses and, negatives and the modern version of negatives and all of that technical progression, that in some way it began right there in that spot looking at that window. And it was Ella, the Countess of Salisbury, that founded Laycock Abbey in 1232, the Middle Ages. But Laycock, from memory, you walk around it in a sort of square shape, and it's surrounded by pretty little shops, little boutiques you could pop into. Wonderful chocolate was being sold there. We really overindulged. And we also went to Castle Combe, which I'd been very excited about because I'd never been to Castle Combe before. And it's so picturesque. It's all of these places are the site of where many movies and films have been captured, the Harry Potters, the Downton Abbeys. They film in all these kind of places. One that was filmed in Castle Combe is the Dr. Dolittle movie with Rex Harrison. That's where some people recognise it from, but it's seen all over the place. I must confess I didn't take any pictures or video while I was there, aside from a couple which I'll show you in a moment, just a couple of seconds. But we were too busy enjoying ourselves and having fun. I'm not really one to do the tourist thing, says River after telling you all the tourist places that I've just been to. But do you know what I mean? I'm more about talking to the people. I'm not really one for snapping away. When I'm spending time with companions, I like to keep the phone away as much as possible, not walk along seeing what's going on here, there and everywhere. I like to switch off, and that includes the camera. I just like to form memories in my own mind. Occasionally take one here and there, of course. I'm not too pure, but I don't focus on that. So I'm afraid, I would have liked to have shown you a few more pictures, I'm afraid, but I just didn't take any. I was too busy enjoying myself. But I did capture. We went for a walk around Castle Combe, which, by the way, is gorgeous, but you'd get very bored there if you weren't there for more than a few hours. There's nothing really to do. There's too many tourists, and although it was okay while we were there, but there's very little to do apart from, eat in a couple of places. But you can do it more or less in half an hour, to be quite honest with you. But we had a nice walk around, and I spent my time gazing at trees, as I want to do, and I captured a little bit of the trees. That's really the only thing that I took in Castle Combe, that I love trees, my dear, and it was forming a sort of canopy over, so I did that. But then we did manage to get a little bit of a view in the morning as the church bells were pealing. It was so wonderful. We managed to get that beautifully drizzly weather that I absolutely love. Just looking at it is like a tonic to me and refreshes the soul and the spirit, and you can see how gorgeous the view is. And I was drinking it all in. drinking it all in to charge my batteries away from city life for a moment. And I also spotted a bench in memory of Queen Elizabeth, and I took a photograph of that to show you. So I did remember doing that, but I can't remember where it was. I think it was Castle Combe. I think it must have been Castle Combe. But yeah, all three of the locations, well, four, that we spent time in on that trip. Every day was wonderful. The weather was very good to us. Pottering around in our beautiful, beautiful kingdom. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate your company. An extra special thanks if you sent a tip jar treat my way. I hope you enjoyed Tip Jar Corner and seeing this week's haul. I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, my dears, and toodle pip.